There are mornings when fate doesn't knock. It walks in smelling like burnt coffee and cheap detergent, wearing a stained apron and shoes that squeak. On that morning, Lily Hart, 22 years old, white skin pale from too many night shifts and not enough sun, hands cracked from hot water and soap, crossed the invisible border between the world she cleaned and the world that never saw her. By sunset, a millionaire's laugh would die in the cold glow of a bank screen, and a girl who lived on tips and leftovers would be asked a question she had never imagined anyone would ask her. What do you want to do with $47 million? Later, she would understand that the question wasn't really about money at all. It was about something more dangerous. What do you want to do with your life now that the world can't pretend you don't matter? The morning traffic on Lexington Avenue sounded like the city grinding its teeth. Buses hissed, horns snapped, the air smelled like exhaust, hot dog water, and the faint sweetness from a bakery halfway down the block. Lily walked fast, head down, tote bag bumping against her hip, apron rolled up inside it. Her work shoes were heavy black non-slip shoes, required by the restaurant, designed to stand in puddles of coffee and fryer oil for 12 hours at a time. They were never meant to walk into a marble cathedral of money. Every step made a tired, squeaking sound. She had washed those shoes once, months ago, in the shared bathroom down the hall from her apartment. The water had run gray for a long time. This morning there hadn't been time for anything. There was barely time for breathing. Her hair, light brown and usually stuffed under a ponytail and a cap, was scraped back and still damp from the quickest shower she could manage under a whining stream of lukewarm water. Her cheeks were flushed from the chill air and from the 20-minute walk she'd taken because adding more money to her Metro card felt like a luxury, not a habit. "Don't look up," she told herself as the skyscrapers reared around her. "Just walk. Go in. Ask. Get humiliated. Go back to work. At least then you'll know." She looked up anyway. The building that housed Blackwell and Associates Private Banking rose like it had a personal agreement with the sky. Glass and steel and old money. The logo, sleek silver letters spelling out Blackwell and Associates, climbed the side of the tower, gleaming in the morning light. She had walked past this building 100 times. On her way to the cafe where she refilled coffee cups for people who talked loudly about diversifying their portfolios and left $3 tips on $90 bills. On her way home at night, when the windows glowed gold and she imagined the people inside had never once cried over a shut-off notice. She had never once imagined she would walk through those doors. But last night, the envelope that lived on top of the fridge, wedged between a jar of instant coffee and a box of generic cereal, had betrayed her. The electric company's logo at the top. The word "final" stamped in red. A due date circled in ink. 12 days. Her little brother Sam had watched her eyes move across the page. "Is that bad?" he'd asked. "No," she'd lied. "It's just a bill. I'll figure it out." She had said those words too many times, and they were wearing thin like everything else in the apartment. Her phone had buzzed with a text from her boss. "Double shift again tomorrow? We're short. I'll let you take leftovers." Leftovers. That was the word they used instead of dinner. And then there was the other envelope. The one she never quite dared to throw away but never fully accepted. A black card with a silver logo. Her name embossed on it. Lily E. Hart. And wrapped around it, a letter in her mother's handwriting, written when the cancer had already made each letter tremble. She had read that letter until the paper softened and the folds began to tear. She had never used the card. What if it was a mistake? What if she showed it to someone and they told her it was fraud? What if they laughed? What if they called security? This morning, standing at the bus stop, she'd watched the bus come and go without getting on. Her fingers had moved to the envelope in her tote bag instead. Her heart had thudded in her chest. Just check, she had told herself. Just check the balance. If it's $15, you'll go to work and forget you were stupid enough to hope. If it's something else... She hadn't let herself finish that thought. Now she stood at the base of the glass tower, staring at her own faint reflection in the revolving door. She saw a face that looked older than 22, with shadows under the eyes and lips pressed thin. A girl who smelled faintly of coffee, grease, and cheap soap. The building's security guard glanced at her, then away. She could see the thought form and dissolve behind his eyes. Wrong place. For Sam, she thought. For Mom. She took a breath that didn't quite fill her lungs and pushed through the revolving door. The lobby swallowed her. Air conditioning washed over her skin like a physical thing. The smell inside was layers of money. Polished wood, expensive perfume, fresh flowers, and something else. Something cool and clean that her brain translated as, "This is not your world." Marble floors gleamed under her feet. Marble columns stretched upward, supporting a ceiling hung with crystal chandeliers that looked like upside-down galaxies. Every surface reflected and refracted light. Her own image came back to her in fragments, chopped and scattered across polished stone. She felt like a stain someone had forgotten to wipe up. At the far end of the lobby, a reception desk the size of her entire kitchen anchored the room. Behind it sat a woman in a navy blazer, blonde hair twisted into a sleek chignon, lipstick precise, nails perfect. A little gold nameplate sat in front of her. Janet. Lily walked toward her. Each squeak of her shoes sounded louder than the last. The receptionist's smile flickered as Lily approached. It didn't disappear. It changed, shifting from a neutral professional expression to something strained, forced over discomfort. "Good morning," the woman said. "Can I help you?" "Yes," Lily said. Her voice surprised her by coming out thin. I need to check my balance." Janet's eyes traveled over her. The cheap cotton shirt, the second-hand jacket that didn't quite fit. The tiredness in her face, the faint smell of a diner that never quite left. "I'm afraid this is a private banking institution," Janet said carefully. "We serve high-net-worth clients. Perhaps you're looking for the community branch around the corner?" "I have a card," Lily blurted, louder than she meant to. Janet's eyebrows lifted by the smallest fraction. "From here," Lily added quickly. "It has your logo." Her hands shook as she reached into her tote bag and pulled out the envelope, then the black card. The receptionist's eyes widened for a fraction of a second before she schooled her face. She took the card between two fingers, the way someone might pick up something fragile or unexpected. She turned it over, examined the logo, the weight, the embedded chip, the tiny serial numbers on the back. Silence stretched between them. Lily could hear the low hum of conversation in the lobby, the distant ding of an elevator, the faint clack of heels on marble. Under all of it, she could hear her own heartbeat. "It appears to be one of ours," Janet conceded slowly, like the card was an unruly acquaintance who had shown up with the wrong company. "But I'll be honest, Miss... Hart," Lily said. "Lily Hart." "Miss Hart," Janet continued. "We don't typically open accounts like this for walk-in clients. These cards are usually issued under very specific circumstances." "I got it in the mail," Lily said. 6 months ago. There was a letter from my mom." That word, mom, always caught in her throat now, like she was swallowing glass. Janet's expression softened by a millimeter. "Do you have identification?" she asked. Lily fumbled for her worn wallet and slid her driver's license across the desk. Janet studied it, compared it to the card, and then to Lily's face. "All right," she said. "One moment. I'll ask an account manager to—" She stopped mid-sentence. The elevator doors at the side of the lobby slid open with a soft chime, and everyone's attention shifted. Richard Blackwell stepped into the lobby. Lily had seen his face before, on billboards and magazine covers and a screen above the bar in the cafe, when the news ran a finance segment. Richard Blackwell, founder and CEO. Blackwell and Associates, Private Banking. 52 years old, body that looked like it spent a lot more time in a personal gym than in a kitchen, silver hair styled in a way that looked effortless and almost certainly wasn't. His suit fit his frame with the easy precision that meant someone had measured him in too many places. His watch was the kind Lily had seen in store windows with price tags that didn't have enough digits for her brain to process. His shoes shone so brightly she could see the chandeliers reflected in them. He walked like the building had been built around him. He had always been a concept to her, a symbol attached to the glittering tower she passed on her way to pour refills for people who pronounced words like portfolio and liquidity with relaxed mouths. Now the concept was moving directly toward her, frowning. "Janet," he said. His voice carried across the marble with practiced authority. He didn't shout. He never had to. "Is there a particular reason someone from food service is standing at my front desk? We do have security, don't we?" The words hit her harder than she expected, though nothing he had said was worse than what she had heard from drunk customers at 2 in the morning. Food service. Not a person, not a name. A category. Janet's professional mask flickered with panic. "Mr. Blackwell, this is Miss Hart," she said quickly. "She claims to have..." "Claims?" Richard's gaze flicked to Lily. It swept over her in one smooth move. Shoes, clothes, hair still damp, tote bag clutched in her hand, the tired lines around her eyes. "And I assume we have security for a reason. I'd prefer if random waitresses didn't use my lobby as a shortcut." Lily's face burned. She could feel heat creeping up her neck. "I work at a cafe," she said, her voice small but audible. "Not that it matters. I just want to check my balance. That's all." Richard laughed. It wasn't the easy laugh of someone genuinely amused. It was sharp, honed, a public tool he knew how to use. "Your balance," he repeated. "And what kind of fortune are we checking today, Miss Hart, was it? Enough to cover rent on a basement apartment? Enough to buy a new pair of those stylish shoes?" Someone nearby chuckled. A man in an expensive suit shifted in his seat, smirking. A woman fiddling with a diamond earring smiled behind her hand. Laughter rippled in small, polite waves. Lily wanted the floor to open and swallow her. Her entire body wanted to turn around, push back through the revolving door, and pretend she had never stepped inside. It had been stupid to come, stupid to hope, stupid to think a black piece of plastic in an envelope could change anything about who she was or how people saw her. But then she thought of the envelope on top of the fridge with the red word "final" on it. She thought of the landlord's raised eyebrows. She thought of Sam sitting at the wobbly kitchen table that morning, eating cereal with water because milk had been one thing too many on the grocery list. She thought of her mother's letter and the line she could never forget. "If you ever feel like this money is too heavy, remember it is not a miracle. It is just years of me saying no to myself, so one day the world can't say no to you." She straightened her shoulders, even though her legs shook. "I got this card in the mail," she said again, forcing each word to be steady. "From this bank. There was a letter from my mom. She's gone now. I don't know what any of it means. I just need to check what's in there." Richard's eyes flicked to the card in Janet's hand. He held out his palm. Janet placed the card carefully in it. He turned it between his fingers, tested the weight, looked at the logo, the chip, the printed details. A tiny frown appeared between his eyebrows. He walked to his desk, or throne, Lily thought distantly, and sat down. The computer on the desk woke up, casting his face in pale blue light. "Come here, Miss Hart," he said without looking up. "Let's clear this up." Lily's knees felt like they didn't belong to her, but they carried her across the marble anyway. Each step sounded louder than the last. What if it's nothing? What if they tell you it's an error and take the card and the letter away, and you have to look your brother in the eye and say you were wrong to hope? She stopped in front of the desk. Richard slid the card into a reader. "Full name," he said. "Lily Elizabeth Hart," she whispered. "Date of birth?" he typed. "Social?" She gave him the numbers. He entered them with the speed of someone who had been doing this for a very long time. The lobby was so quiet now she could hear someone's bracelet clink as they crossed their arms. "Well," Richard said loudly, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "let's see what kind of treasure our young barista thinks she's stumbled onto." His fingers hit the enter key. The screen changed. The smirk froze. He blinked once, twice, leaned slightly closer to the monitor, as if the numbers might rearrange themselves if he changed the angle. He typed something else, checked the account number, the ID, cross-referenced another screen. The color drained a fraction from his face. "Is there a problem?" Janet called, her voice tight with curiosity. "No problem," Richard said, but his tone had shifted. "Just a technical inconsistency. One moment." He swallowed. "Janet," he said more quietly, "pull up account ending 4017, under the name Hart Lily. I want to see if this anomaly is isolated to my terminal." Janet typed, her manicured fingers suddenly less sure. The seconds stretched. "Oh my God," she whispered before catching herself. "I mean, yes, sir. I see the same figure." "What does it say?" Lily asked. Her own voice sounded far away, like it came from the other end of a tunnel. Richard looked up at her fully for the first time. He saw the dirt embedded in the lines of her knuckles, the pale scars from hot plates, the faint bruise on her forearm where a tray had hit 2 days ago. He saw fear stomped down under stubbornness. "This has to be a mistake," he said, half to himself. "It has to be." "What does it say?" she asked again, each word separate. He could have lied. He didn't. "The system shows," he said slowly, "a balance of $47,300,000. The words hung there, ridiculous, impossible, obscene. Someone gasped. Someone laughed, short and stunned. Someone muttered something about glitches. Lily stared at him. She heard the words. Her brain refused to make them mean anything. 47 million. Her rent was $850 a month if she paid on time. She had been short 3 times in the last 6 months. Her biggest tip had been $60 from a tourist who thought he was signing the total. 47 was a number she used for lottery fantasies she didn't let herself linger on. Now it was perched on the edge of reality in the mouth of a man who had laughed at her. "No," she whispered. "That's not... I'm a waitress. I make $3 an hour plus tips. There's been a mistake. There has to be." "I agree," Richard said tightly, "which is why we'll verify this very thoroughly." His eyes sharpened. "Miss Hart, I need you to tell me exactly where you got this card." "I told you," she said, the words tumbling out. "The mail, 6 months ago. There was a letter from my mom." "And your mother was... what exactly?" he asked. "In finance, entertainment, technology?" "A waitress," Lily said, her chin lifting slightly. She worked the breakfast shift at the diner on 14th and 3rd, lunch at a place downtown 3 days a week, nights at a hotel bar sometimes, if they needed extra hands. Not a hedge fund manager, not old money, not new money, A woman in an apron, like Lily. He blinked slowly, as if this detail did not fit with the number on the screen. "And did your mother have any other sources of income?" he asked. "Investments, businesses, holdings we might not be aware of?" "You mean, was she secretly rich?" Lily's laugh came out brittle and too loud. "No. She clipped coupons and argued with insurance companies and worked until her feet bled, so my brother and I could have a shot at not ending up exactly like her." His jaw tightened. "Is it possible," he said, lowering his voice so it sounded almost gentle, "that your mother was involved in something illegal? Sometimes people in desperate circumstances—" "My mom was not a criminal," Lily snapped, louder than she meant to. Her voice bounced off marble and glass. "She didn't even steal napkins from work. She would rather go hungry than take something that wasn't hers. She died apologizing for leaving us bills. Don't you dare stand there and—" The lobby, which had been buzzing with whispers, went very still. The woman with the diamond earrings looked down at her hands. The man in the expensive suit, who had laughed earlier, stared at the floor. Richard opened his mouth, then closed it again. "Richard," a new voice said, calm and edged with steel. "I assume there's a good reason you're interrogating a young woman in the middle of the lobby instead of inviting her to sit down like a human being." Lily turned. An older man walked toward them. Early 60s, tall but slightly stooped at the shoulders, hair iron gray, eyes clear and kind. His suit was expensive, but quiet. His tie was simple. His name badge read, James Morrison. "James," Richard said, controlling his tone. "This is not your—" "It is my concern," James said mildly. "Every client in this building is my concern. And according to the system, Miss Hart is very much a client." He turned to Lily and his whole face softened. "Hello," he said. "I'm James Morrison. I'm one of the senior account managers here. Would you like to come with me to a private room where we can talk, and you can have something to drink?" Lily looked from Richard's stiff jaw to James's steady eyes. "Yes," she said. "Please." James gestured toward a hallway. "Right this way, Miss Hart." "James," Richard began, "I should be—" "You," James said, still polite, "should probably stay here and consider how many people just watched you humiliate someone who came here for help. I'll call you when I've confirmed exactly how wrong you are." A few muffled snorts of laughter escaped from nearby chairs. Richard's nostrils flared. Lily followed James down the hallway on legs that didn't feel entirely solid, away from the cold blue glow of the computer screen and the weight of hundreds of eyes, into a smaller room with soft lighting and a door that closed. Later, she would remember that hallway as the line where her life split into before and after. Conference room 12B felt like a different planet. The lights were gentler. The carpet muffled her steps instead of amplifying them. A long table sat in the middle with comfortable chairs around it. A pitcher of water and a stack of glasses waited at one end. One wall was glass, looking out over Manhattan, the streets below drawn in lines and dots. "Sit," James said, pulling out a chair for her. She sat. Her body started to shiver now that the immediate threat of humiliation had paused. James poured a glass of water and slid it toward her. She wrapped her fingers around it like it might anchor her to the moment. "First rule," he said, his voice warm. "No one makes life-altering decisions on an empty stomach and a dry throat." "Are you hungry?" She opened her mouth to say no. Her stomach answered for her with a loud growl. She flushed. "I guess," she muttered. James nodded as if this confirmed a theory. He picked up the conference phone, pressed a button, and asked for sandwiches, fruit, and cookies for 3, then hung up. "We'll consider the third one your brother if you want to take anything home," he said. Lily blinked. "How do you know I have a brother?" she asked quietly. Your mother's letter, he said. I saw the first line before we came in. We'll read it together properly if that's all right with you. Her hand went instinctively to her tote bag, to the envelope she'd tucked back in after showing the card. Can I see it? He asked gently. She pulled it out and laid it on the table. The paper was worn, the creases deep, the edges softened by fingerprints. James handled it carefully, smoothing it as if it might break. We'll get to this in a moment, he said. First, I'm going to log into your account from here so we can confirm what I saw on my terminal. I want you to see it with your own eyes. Then we'll talk about what it means. Fair? She nodded. The word fair felt like a stretch, but she trusted his tone more than the word itself. He opened a slim laptop, logged in, and navigated to a screen that showed fields for name and numbers. Full name? He asked, though he already knew it. Lily Elizabeth Hart. Date of birth? She answered. He typed her social security number as she recited it, the numbers sounding strange in this polished room. He hit enter. Her name appeared at the top of the screen. Account ending in 041 Currency USD. Balance 47,300,000 ISO. She stared at it. It might as well have been another language. The zeros didn't look real. She had seen numbers that big only on the news when someone talked about national budgets or corporate valuations. It's real? She whispered. It's real, James said. And now that we've confirmed that, I'd like you to understand something very important before anyone else walks through that door. She looked at him, bracing. You are not in trouble, he said. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. You're sure? She asked. Because it feels like the kind of thing people go to jail for. Poor girl accidentally sits on someone else's 47 million and ends up on the news in handcuffs. It feels that way because you've spent your whole life being punished for things that weren't your fault, James said. But this isn't that. This is legal. This is documented. This was your mother's doing. We're going to walk through it. He clicked on another document, a digital file with dense text. This is not a typical checking account, he continued. It's something called a trust. The trust was funded 6 months ago by a life insurance policy payout. Policyholder, Emily Hart, your mother. Hearing her name in this environment felt like a magic trick. Lily's throat tightened. Yes, she said. That's her. She took out this policy more than 10 years ago, James said. Small monthly payments. $20 here, $30 there. Sometimes a little more. She never missed a payment. Not once. That can't be, Lily said. We were always broke. If she had extra money, it went to bills or groceries or... She stopped, realization hitting her. She must have skipped meals. James didn't nod. He didn't need to. The truth sat between them anyway. The policy was structured to grow over time, he said. She chose a type that would accumulate value and then pay out a significant sum on her death. After fees and taxes, the amount that came here was $47.3 million. He clicked again. Then she did something many wealthy clients failed to do, he went on. She thought about how to keep it from destroying you. He tilted the screen slightly so Lily could see a second set of documents. She set up this trust. It says you can't access the full amount until you're 25. Until then, the trust pays you a monthly allowance. Enough for safe housing, food, health care, education. Enough to breathe. How much? Lily asked. $15,000 a month, he replied. She laughed once, a broken sound. I make $29,000 a year if I don't get sick, she said. I did the math once, on a napkin. I thought I was so responsible. You were, James said. You are. He picked up the letter. "May I read this aloud?" he asked. She nodded. "I've read it," she said. 100 times, I think. But every time I get to the part where she talks about the money, I stop. Like if I don't hear it, it's not real. Maybe I'm ready now." He unfolded the paper slowly. "My Lily," he read, and the sound of her mother's words in someone else's voice almost undid her. "If you are reading this, it means I couldn't stay as long as I wanted. If love was measured in working hours, I would have lived forever. But the doctors have their own clocks, and mine ran out faster than I hoped." Lily pressed her thumb into the edge of the table. "You know how I am with money. Always counting, always stretching, always apologizing. I am so sorry you grew up hearing 'we can't afford it' more than 'yes.' I hated every single one of those no's, more than you know. What I want you to know is this. I was not saying no to you. I was saying no to the world that wanted to eat us alive. I was buying time. And while I was buying time, I was buying something else too. About 10 years ago, I sat in a little fluorescent office with an insurance agent who looked at me like I was crazy. 'You're a waitress,' he said. 'You don't need a life insurance policy this big.' I told him he didn't know my kids. Every month, I paid a little into a policy while I was alive, so that when I'm not, the world doesn't get to act like you and Sam are disposable. You are going to see a number that does not make sense. You'll think there's been a mistake. You'll want to give it back. Don't. It's not a gift from the universe. It's work I did when you were sleeping. It's every double shift I took. It's every new pair of shoes I didn't buy. It's every time I pretended I wasn't hungry so you could eat." Tears blurred Lily's vision. "But Lily, listen to me. Money is a tool, not a personality transplant. It will not make you better than anyone. It will not make you less lonely. It will not bring me back. It will, however, make it harder to see which people loved you when you had nothing, and which ones only show up once they smell something on you. I asked the bank to put this in a trust. That means you cannot blow it on something stupid in a week, and the world cannot steal it from you in a month. You will get enough each month to breathe, to eat, to rest, to study, to take care of Sam. The rest will wait for you when you are older and have had time to become whoever you want to be. Promise me you won't let this money turn you into someone who looks down on waitresses, Lily. Remember who your mother was. Remember that every waitress, every janitor, every cashier and bus driver and dishwasher has a story, a body that hurts, and a heart that loves someone. Be kind to them. You'll have the money to be generous. Don't forget how it felt when generosity was the only thing that got you through a day. Take care of Sam. Make him do his homework. Tell him that just because his socks had holes sometimes doesn't mean he's less than anyone. Tell him I love him, even when I'm not there to say it out loud. And you, my girl who smells like coffee and vanilla and dish soap, rest. For once in your life, let yourself rest a little. Not forever. You're my daughter and we don't sit still well, but enough to remember that you're not just a body carrying plates. You are a whole human being. Time to find out who she is. If you ever feel like this money is too heavy, remember, it is not a miracle. It is not magic. It is just years of me saying no to myself, so one day the world can't say no to you. I love you more than all the tips I ever counted, more than all the late-night buses, more than all the cups of coffee in the world. Mom. James's voice went quiet on the last word. Lily had been holding her breath without noticing. It escaped in a shudder. "I hate her," she whispered hoarsely. James waited. "Do you?" he asked softly. "I hate that she didn't tell me," Lily said. "I hate that she let us keep living like we were one broken plate away from disaster while she was building this huge, secret thing. I hate that she died still wearing shoes with holes in them. No, James said. You don't hate her. You miss her. And missing her hurts so much that your grief is looking for somewhere to go. Right now, it's landing on the only person who isn't here to argue. A knock on the door made them both jump. A young woman from catering rolled a tray into the room. Food delivery, she said, giving Lily a small, sympathetic smile without asking any questions. Turkey, veggie, fruit, cookies. Need anything else? No, thank you, James said. The door closed. Eat, he told Lily. Your body is in shock. It's a lot easier for the world to knock you over when you haven't eaten. She picked up the sandwich with fingers that still shook. The first bite tasted like nothing. The second tasted like everything she had been missing. Salt, protein, the ridiculous luxury of a piece of lettuce that hadn't wilted on a plate. By the time she finished half of it, she realized how hungry she had been. Better? James asked. A little, she said. As much as anyone can be better while sitting next to $47 million, that doesn't make sense. Good, he said, because I have something else I'd like you to hear. Then we'll ask Richard to join us. This time, he will sit and listen. A faint spark of satisfaction lit in her chest at that. Okay, she said. Downstairs in the lobby, Richard sat at his desk and stared at a screen that had redefined his morning. He had spent 23 years in private banking. He had watched fortunes grow and crumble. He had seen numbers larger than this, numbers that represented entire conglomerates. He had learned not to flinch at anything, but this number, attached to that girl, would not leave his mind. He replayed his own words from earlier, heard the sharpness in them, the laziness of assumption. Is this some kind of PR test? One client had asked him quietly about 10 minutes ago. Some social experiment you're running? No, he had said. It's not that. His phone buzzed. Conference room 12B now, James had texted. And Richard, check your ego at the door. He stood outside the conference room and watched his own hand hesitate on the doorknob. Inside, Lily looked raw and fragile and more composed than he felt. Richard, James said, come in, close the door. Richard did as he was told. It wasn't a position he was used to. He took a seat at the end of the table. Miss Hart, he began stiffly, I would like to apologize. No, James said, without raising his voice. You're going to listen first. He slid the letter across the table. Richard read it. He didn't expect it to hit him the way it did. At first, he read it like he read contracts, scanning for structure and key points. Then the words reached past his training and pulled on something he had buried a long time ago, the memory of his own mother standing in their small kitchen. Hands red from cleaning houses before his father's business had finally taken off. By the time he reached the line about love measured in working hours, something in his chest had shifted. She did all this? He asked quietly, gesturing at the trust documents. On waitress wages? She did this on grit and math, James said, and the ability to endure 10 years of people like you treating her like scenery while she cleaned their spilled coffee. Richard turned to Lily. Miss Hart, he said, forcing the words out, I owe you an apology. Several apologies. She stared back at him. Yes, she said. At the risk of sounding like every corporate villain in a movie, he said, I judged you by your appearance, your job, the smell of your clothes. I decided in a few seconds that you didn't belong in my lobby. And I didn't just quietly think that. I used it as an opportunity to entertain the people who do belong here. I was wrong. Are you sorry because you were wrong about the money? She asked. Or because you were mean to a girl who walked into a bank hoping someone would help her? He didn't try to dress it up. Both, he said. I'm sorry because I misjudged you and because it took the numbers on a screen for me to see it. That's not a great answer, but it's the true one. She studied him. "That's not as bad as it could be," she said finally. James cleared his throat. "Now that feelings have been acknowledged," he said, "we need to talk about practicalities. Miss Hart, do you have any family besides your brother?" "No," she said. "Dad left when we were little. Mom's parents died before I was born. She was an only child. It's just me and Sam." "Then we need to make sure the trust's provisions for guardianship are properly in place for him," James said. "The trust includes funding for a legal guardian and stipulates living arrangements. We'll need to involve social services, but the money changes that conversation dramatically. You won't be separated. The trust is explicit about that." "Good," Lily said, shoulders tightening at the thought. "You also need safer housing," James went on. "I've seen your address in the file. I know that building. It should have been condemned 10 years ago." "It's home," Lily said quietly. "It may feel like home," James replied. "But home shouldn't grow mold in the walls and threaten to burn down every time someone plugs in a space heater." Richard spoke up. "We own units in a residential building 2 blocks from here," he said. "Good security, reliable maintenance, access to decent schools. I can make one available to you under the bank's oversight as part of the trust's housing allocation. Rent covered by the monthly disbursement, no hidden catches." Lily blinked. "You're volunteering to move us into one of your buildings?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "In part because it's the right thing to do. In part because I don't want to read, in 6 months, that something happened in your current building that I could have prevented." She let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "Okay," she said. "But I pick where Mom's chair goes." "Of course," he said. That afternoon, Lily went back to her apartment in the crumbling building she had called home for years. Richard went with her. So did James. The younger version of Richard would have sent an assistant and considered the matter handled. This version wanted to see where Emily Hart had lived and where her children had learned how hard the world could be. The building leaned, paint peeled. The stairwell smelled like old cooking oil and something damp. The elevator had an out-of-order sign that looked like it had been there so long it had become part of the wall. They climbed 4 flights of stairs. Lily opened the door to 4B. The apartment was small but immaculate. The couch was patched but clean. The tiny kitchen had mismatched mugs hanging carefully from hooks. The walls were decorated with photographs in cheap frames and drawings held up with tape. "Lily," a voice called. Sam stepped out of the bedroom. 14, too tall for his clothes, which had been stretched past their intended lifespans. Dark hair sticking up in 3 directions, eyes that carried more years than they should. His gaze went immediately to Richard's suit, James's tie. "Who are they?" he demanded. "This is Mr. Morrison," Lily said. "And this is Mr. Blackwell. They're from the bank." Sam stiffened. "Did we bounce something?" he asked. "How can we bounce something? We don't even have enough money to bounce." "No," Lily said quickly. "We're not in trouble. Sit down, Sam, please." He looked from her face to theirs, then sat at the small table. Lily took the other chair. "You know how Mom always said she was taking care of things?" she began. He rolled his eyes. "She always said that," he said. "Bills, landlords, doctors. I thought it was code for, we're doomed, but I can't say it out loud." "She was taking care of us," Lily said, "in ways we didn't know." She told him, carefully, slowly, about the insurance policy, about 10 years of payments, about the trust, about the letter. Sam's face went through disbelief, anger, hurt, confusion. "So she was rich?" he asked finally. "And just didn't tell us?" "No," Lily said softly. "She was never rich. Not once in her life. She was betting on a future she knew she wouldn't be around to see. She couldn't touch the money while she was alive. That's how the policy worked. She chose this so that when she died, we wouldn't be where we are now. That's messed up, he said. They built it so you only get saved when the person you love is gone. Yes, James said quietly. Insurance is a harsh kind of safety. It doesn't give, it replaces. Sam looked at Richard. Did you laugh at her? He asked abruptly. At the bank? Richard's throat tightened. I laughed at your sister, he said. I thought she was lying. I thought she was in the wrong place. Would you have laughed at Mom? Sam pressed. I hope not, Richard said. But I can't promise I wouldn't have. That's part of what I need to fix. Sam held his gaze with a steadiness that made Richard uncomfortable. Her name was Emily Hart, Sam said. You remember that. Next time you step over a cleaner's bucket in your building, you think about her. Deal? Deal, Richard said. They talked for an hour. They explained the trust in simpler words. James promised to be there for every meeting. Richard promised to help them move. When Mrs. B. Alvarez from 4C came by with a casserole and saw the papers on the table, she put a hand over her mouth. She did it, she whispered in Spanish, tears welling. La loca. She always said she was planning something big for the kids. I didn't believe her. Lily laughed through her own tears. You and me both, she said. A week later, Lily and Sam stood in the lobby of a different building, one with a doorman who smiled and asked their names, with working elevators and lights that didn't flicker. The apartment on the 8th floor had real closets, windows that closed properly, and a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a television commercial. It's too much, Lily said when she saw the stainless steel appliances. It's safe, James replied. That's the main requirement. It's weird, Sam added, running a hand over the cool countertop. I feel like if I spill something here, the floor will call the police. You're allowed to spill things, Richard said. You're allowed to live. They brought their belongings over in 3 trips. There wasn't much. Clothes, books, the chipped mug with a cartoon coffee cup on it, the plastic bin of Sam's soccer trophies from school, a few pots and pans. The things that didn't fit in boxes were heavier. Memory, grief, the feeling of leaving their mother behind in the old walls. They put her blue chair by the living room window, where the light was kind. That night, for the first time in years, Lily slept without setting an alarm for a shift she couldn't miss. She still woke at 4 a.m, her body expecting the grind. She sat in the blue chair and watched the city wake up from a different angle. Her phone buzzed with a message from the restaurant. We saw your note, it read. We're sorry about your mom. When you're ready, you always have a spot here. She smiled sadly, typed back, Thank you. I might not be back. It's a long story. Tell Teresa I love her pancakes. In the weeks that followed, her life rearranged itself slowly. There were meetings with lawyers, meetings with social workers, meetings with financial counselors who explained terms like asset allocation and risk tolerance in language that didn't make her feel stupid. James sat in on as many as possible, translating the translators when their words slid back into jargon. Sam started at a new school in a different district. He came home annoyed about homework instead of about mice in the walls. He joined a soccer team with uniforms that fit. At night, he still stood in the doorway of Lily's room sometimes and asked quietly, We're not going to wake up and find out this was a mistake, right? No, she always said. This is the one thing in our life that isn't a mistake. Mom made sure. As the practical dust settled, something else began to grow inside Lily. It started as a restless energy she couldn't outlet by carrying trays or wiping tables. It turned into lists on scraps of paper. It became a notebook filled with ideas that looked messy and wild and, to her, necessary. One afternoon, she walked into James's office with that notebook clutched to her chest. "I've been thinking," she said. He smiled. "Those words often precede trouble," he said. "The good kind. Sit." She opened the notebook. Pages of bullet points and arrows and phrases stared back at him. "I don't want this to just stop with us," she said. "With me and Sam having a nice apartment and enough food. That's great. I'm grateful. But if it stops there, it feels wrong. Mom didn't work herself into the ground so we could hide in a tower and pretend we don't know what it's like to choose between rent and groceries." "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I want to start a foundation," she said. "In her name. The Emily Hart Foundation. For working families. For kids like we were. For moms like her." He nodded slowly. "Tell me," he said. "From the top." She talked. About families one shut-off notice away from being in the dark. About teenagers working night shifts and falling asleep in class. About people who filled out forms wrong because no one ever taught them how to read them. About how much time poor people wasted navigating systems rich people paid others to handle. She wanted the foundation to provide emergency grants for rent and utilities, vouchers for groceries, school supplies, tutoring, legal clinics, career counseling. Nothing glamorous, just the things that made life bearable enough that people could breathe and think. "How much do you want to start it with?" he asked carefully. "10 million, she said. His eyebrows lifted. "That's a lot," he said. "If I can't give up 10 million, she said, when Mom was willing to give up comfortable shoes and hot meals and sleep, what does that say about me? Besides, what's the point of having all this if it just sits in an account and makes more money for the sake of it?" He didn't argue. Later that day, she asked to see Richard. He met her in a smaller conference room this time. No theatrics, no audience. "I want to start a foundation," she said before he could speak. "I'm putting 10 million into it. Will you match it?" He stared at her. The version of him from a year ago would have launched into a discussion about financial prudence. This version thought of Emily wiping tables, of the letter taped above his desk now, of the cleaners whose wages he had just raised. "Yes," he said, "on one condition." She stiffened. "What condition?" she asked. "That you let me help," he said. "Not control. Help. I know people who can make this bigger than you, and I can imagine a loan. And I want to put her name on the scholarship fund we're building for workers' children at the bank." "You'd do that?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Your mother has been teaching me more from a few pages of paper than most consultants I've paid in the last decade. It seems only right that her name keeps doing work." News of what was happening at Blackwell & Associates eventually left the building. Reporters love a story where a rich man seems to grow a conscience. They love it even more when it comes with a photogenic young woman and a shorthand hook. Waitress inherits millions. CEO changes his ways. A local TV station requested an interview. James asked Lily if she wanted to do it. "I don't want to be a fairy tale," she said. "Poor girl gets rich. The end. That's not the story." "It doesn't have to be," he said. "If you agree, you can frame it your way. Or you can say no. You don't owe anyone your story." She thought about it. She thought about the single dads who came into the cafe on their lunch breaks. The grocery clerks, the bus drivers, the women with badges from cleaning companies. She thought about how invisible they all were. "I'll do it," she said. "But I talk about Mom, and about the foundation, and about how this shouldn't be some weird miracle that happens once. It should be normal for people to be treated with dignity without needing millions of dollars." The interview took place in Conference Room 12B, the same room where she'd first learned the number that had rearranged her life. Lights were set up, cameras. A microphone was clipped to her collar. She sat in a chair that suddenly felt too big. The reporter smiled at her. "Can you say and spell your name for us?" she asked. "Lily Hart," she said. Lylyhart. "And you were a waitress?" the reporter asked. "Yes," Lily said. "I worked at 2 different places, sometimes 3 if someone called out sick." She took a breath. "I still feel like a waitress. I don't think that part disappears just because a number changed." The reporter's eyes softened. "Can you tell us what happened the day you came here?" she asked. Lily told the story, not with bitterness, though it would have been easy. She talked about waking up, about the envelope on the fridge, about deciding to walk into a building that had always felt off-limits, about the receptionist, about Richard's words in the lobby, about the laugh. "And what was it like?" the reporter asked. "When you saw the number?" "Like the world glitched," Lily said. "Like you're playing a game on the lowest difficulty level, and suddenly the screen says you unlocked some secret boss fight you didn't sign up for. It didn't feel real. It still doesn't some days." The reporter turned to Richard. "Mr. Blackwell," she said, "you've been described as one of the toughest CEOs in this city. What changed you?" He looked at the camera, then at Lily. "I humiliated her," he said simply. "In my lobby, for no reason other than that I thought I knew who she was. Then I discovered her mother had structured a trust and policy more sophisticated than anything I've seen from some of my wealthiest clients. It forced me to ask a question I should have asked a long time ago." "What question?" the reporter prompted. "What if the people I've been treating as invisible are actually the ones I should be learning from?" he said. The reporter asked about the changes at the bank, about the tripled wages for cleaners, about the scholarships, about the foundation, about how other executives were reacting. "Some say I've gone soft," Richard said, with a faint smile. "Our profit margins say otherwise. Turns out when you treat people like humans, they work better. Who knew?" After the cameras were turned off and the microphones unhooked, Lily stood by the window for a moment, watching the city. "Was that okay?" she asked James. "It was more than okay," he said. "You made her real, your mother. You made a lot of other people real, too." As months turned into a year, the ripples of that morning in the lobby spread further than any of them had expected. The Emily Hart Foundation set up in a modest office above a laundromat, with second-hand desks and new laptops. People came. They sat on plastic chairs in the waiting area and filled out forms with the help of volunteers who had once been in their place. They received food vouchers, rent assistance, help with navigating medical bills, tutoring for their kids, support in applying for jobs. Sometimes Lily worked the front desk. People relaxed a little when they saw her apron hanging on the back of her chair. She still wore it sometimes, as a reminder and as a message. I was you. I am you. Sam thrived at his new school. He still missed their old building sometimes, the noise and the chaos and the neighbors who felt like extended family, but he didn't miss the sound of mice in the walls or the smell of mold. He joined a soccer team and came home complaining about practice instead of about hunger. One afternoon, he dropped onto the couch and groaned, "My coach is insane. He makes us run extra laps if we're late." "That's terrible," Lily said with a straight face. "You having to be on time to something like the rest of the world." He threw a cushion at her. Richard kept changing in his own slower way. He still wore expensive suits and still negotiated with clients whose assets could buy whole streets. But he also knew the names of every member of the cleaning crew. He sent his own daughter articles about the foundation and listened when she challenged him on policies he hadn't thought twice about before. One night, very late, he stood alone in the now quiet lobby of his bank and looked up at the chandeliers. He remembered the day he'd mocked a girl who smelled like coffee and fear. He thought about Emily, who had walked into this building through the service entrance for years, pushing carts of cleaning supplies down these polished halls. "I'm sorry," he said quietly to the empty air. The building didn't answer. It didn't need to. The apology wasn't really for the marble. On the anniversary of the day Lily had first come to check her balance, the Emily Hart Foundation gave out its first scholarship to a young man whose mother worked nights as a hospital janitor. He wanted to study culinary arts. He cried when they handed him the letter. Later, he wrote them a note saying, "I want to open a diner one day where nobody forgets the waitress's name." That night, Lily sat in the blue chair by the window in 8F. The city outside pulsed with light. Sam's door was half open. She could see the glow of his phone and hear faint music. She opened her banking app, almost out of habit. Account ending 0417. Balance: 37 million and some change. 10 million had gone into the foundation. Some had gone into housing, education funds, emergencies they'd already responded to. The number had gone down and down again with markets. For a moment, she thought about the girl she'd been a year before, staring at a red word on an electric bill and wondering how many more double shifts her body could handle. She thought about the woman who had stayed up late taking online courses on finance, then left her children a map and a letter instead of a miracle. She closed the app and leaned her forehead against the cool glass. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered. "We're doing our best not to waste it." Down in some other part of the city, a waitress wiped down a table, slipped 2 sugar packets into her apron for her own coffee later, and forced a smile at a man who would never know her name. Somewhere else, a cleaner emptied an office trash can and straightened a chair. Lily hoped, fiercely, that as time passed and the foundation grew and stories spread, fewer people like them would go unnoticed. Fewer rich men would need a shock on a screen to realize how wrong they had been about who mattered. She stood up, turned away from the window, and went to bed. In the morning, she would get up and go not to a cafe, but to an office above a laundromat, where people would attach their hopes to a clipboard and ask for help. She would sit across from them and say, honestly, "You are not background in someone else's life. You are the main character in your own. Let's see what we can do." Once, she had walked into a bank to check her balance. A millionaire had laughed until he saw the screen. The number there had frozen his smile, but it wasn't the money that had changed anything. It was a waitress who refused to run, a letter from a mother who cleaned, a boy who asked the right questions, and a man who discovered, late but not too late, that true wealth was not measured in zeros but in the lives you touched and the dignity you gave to every human being who crossed your polished floor.